Let's talk NBA Draft Combine now.
Uh,
NBA Draft Combine has now come and gone in terms of the public facing aspects of it.
yep.
I have watched like part of the first game today.
Well,
I've
you only
watched
get to
both
see parts,
games.
Sam. You only get to see parts of the game anyway. That's all
You
you get
just
to
want to
see.
do this now?
Can we get it? Can we get it over with?
Yeah.
We're an hour and 15 minutes in, so my emotions about it aren't as strong as they were 2 hours ago. Listen, if ESPN doesn't want to do better coverage than this, and I'm blaming ESPN in general, no individual,
Not the people on camera. It's a
no,
production choice.
it's a production choice. It was very much a strategic choice of how they did things. Then give it to somebody else. I am there to watch these kids play basketball, and there are legit NBA draft prospects on the court, and I am staring at people in the broadcast, people in the stands. I love Anthony Edwards, Sam. I don't need an Anthony Edwards, why you shouldn't compare me to LeBron James interview, as much as that's interesting to me, while the game is going on. It drove me absolutely insane. I don't tweet about these things ever. I'm not that guy. And I tweeted about him. I wrote tweets and deleted them. I had to say, don't hit send. Just let me watch the game. All I wanted, here's the thing. You want to interview Reed Sheppard or Woj or whoever, go about your business. Split screen it so I can watch the game. I honestly, Sam, thought it was disrespectful to the guys playing that they continued to broadcast and choose the pass and the avenues they did. I'm terrified that's what happens in the second round of the draft. Listen, let me come on and talk about him. I had a page and a half of notes on almost every single guy that was playing in those games. I will do it for free, Sam. I will do it for free. But I think it should have been better. I was upset for the kids, to be quite honest. Sorry.
So here's my thing. Yes, I would like to see the games. Yes, I would love to see the games more. Not a lot of people are as engaged in the NBA draft as you and I are.
I know.
And ESPN, who has the draft, uses this as an opportunity to introduce a lot of these players, right? And I think that is in some respect valuable. Now, like, I agree with you. I would just like to see split screen stuff. Like, just make it so we can see the games at all times. There's no reason not to have like kinetic action on the court on the screen somewhere, as opposed to, something else. Or offer like, if you're not going to do it on TV, offer an over the top option on, watch ESPN on the app or whatever, where you just have like the game, right?
Yeah. I don't need commentary. I just want to watch the game. Sam, they refused to go to break because they were interviewing Lawrence Frank. And then after the interview was over, when the game was back on, then they went to commercial break while the game was being played. I want to watch the game. You can't see parts of the game at all, Sam. Sorry.
And here's the other piece of it too. In terms of it being disrespectful to the players, I don't know that it is. I'm typically like 100% on your side on that stuff. This isn't like a game where they're trying to have it televised. Like, they're there in front of scouts trying to perform.
No, that's
right.
Fair. Sure.
Like, it's different than, the national title game, if they would go away, or like even some random fucking Big Ten game in West Lafayette, right? Where you're up in the stands, like doing shit and like interviewing whoever. I would prefer to see the game. The thing I would ask ESPN next year is just offer an over the top, like, streaming thing where it's just like an ISO on the game. I think that would be really like an easy adjustment for everybody.
Here's my problem is I can't get a version of that game without that broadcast. You know what I mean? Like, I can't go download something on Synergy where it cuts. I legitimately have guys I was trying to watch film and do stuff for that I can't get parts of the game for. I missed actual game action. And let's say these kids wanted to work, like break the film down or something. There is legit minutes of the game that is not available to them. Maybe they are to them, but to learn from. And so that's ultimately, that's truly what I'm frustrated by. give me a different version of it, like somewhere else where I can just watch it. I don't need the broadcast.
Hey, and if you're enjoying this video, like and subscribe over on YouTube, where I am just like sitting back and like laughing as Bryce, loses his mind on this thing. Let's talk about the players, right?
Okay. Yep.
Did you think anybody like really truly moved the needle with their performances this week, with measurements, with athletic testing, anything like that?
No. I mean, there was numbers that stood out, right? Like Reed's vertical jump was impressive. I thought KJ Simpson looked good. I think it was the first scrimmage. I thought I just had a name. Who was I looking at? Oh, your guy. I thought Shed looked really good in the scrimmage. I thought he played really well. Here's the thing, like this is where people are going to tell me to just shut up. The other thing is like the scrimmages, I like to just see the way guys move and how they play and how they interact and all of those things. The measurement stuff isn't as big to me. Like I don't get as crazy, but even the shooting things, you sent out a tweet and I text you. I said, Sam, I agree with this 100%. And this is Bryce Simon being arrogant portion of the podcast. Sam, if you told me, hey, Bryce, I need you to go make so many threes out of 50 within the next month, I could get you a video where I do that. And I was a low-level Division I player who wasn't any good. And so like these standstill shooting numbers, we have data on most of these guys of game-like shots. So
like I'm telling you, like I've been in the gym with Mark Titus where like he hasn't picked up a ball in a month or whatever. And he'll go and just like bang like 18 to 25 from
100%. Yeah.
Like he can, like, if you have that shooting skill in an open gym, it's just kind of the reality. And now like these guys are moving, they're doing a star drill, they're in front of scouts, there's pressure, like how you react to the pressure is an interesting piece of it. But I don't care. Like you can't over index on 25 shots that these kids take or 50 shots, whatever it is. If you're doing the spot up plus the star drill, it's just such a bad idea when we have games of them shooting and we've been to practices. Like people were like, oh my God, like Bronny James didn't take that many threes this year. He, the way he performed in the star drill says something. Guys, like any scout that was at Hoop Summit last year saw him shoot a billion shots in practice. Like, and saw him shoot like a bunch of stuff. Like the sample that we have of these guys is like really like a lot greater than what it is, in my opinion.
Well, like for example, listen, I love Bub. We've talked about Bub a lot, and I think he's awesome. But like the first video I saw of him, he was catching, he's super relaxed, like took forever to get his shot up. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, I think it could be a real error to just look at the numbers on a sheet of paper and make any sort of conclusions or jump guys way up or down. Now, did I move guys on my board around a little bit from the scrimmages? Yes. And I'm trying not to overreact, but I'm like, man, that looked a certain way. And that kind of like, there was little things here and there. I thought there was guys that looked really poor in the scrimmages that I'm like, man, that's 2 scrimmages. You get a chance. That didn't look great. But I just don't think, some of the verticals, did you see it? Like, I'm interested. I want to go watch Reed. Like, how often do you think we saw that vertical show up with Reed? To me, my first thought was when he blocks jump shots defensively, I'm like, oh, this makes more sense now why he was able to contest some of those the way he did.
So, so let's kind of do this in sections, right?
Okay, sure.
So the way that I kind of want to break this up is I was going to do measurements first, but we'll do athletic testing first because you brought up, and I think that's like totally fine to do. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen here and bring up the testing while we're talking about it so people can see what the numbers were. If you're watching on YouTube, a great reason to watch on YouTube. You'll be able to see all of these numbers as opposed to some of them. And that's the wrong screen. What screen am I looking for here? I am looking to share screen. We're looking for, that's what we're looking for, Bryce. Okay. So let's talk about Reed first. So Reed Sheppard has the 42-inch vertical leap. The other piece of it with Reed that is worth noting is that if you look at Reed's standing reach, Reed had a 7'9" 5" standing reach. If you look at the other players around him that are, let's say, between 6'2.5" and 6'1", right? Some of them have like pretty similar wingspan measurements. Like for instance, like Jared McCain has like a similar wingspan measurement. It's 6'3.5", right? To Reed's 6'3", 2'5". Jared McCain ended up with an 8'2" standing reach. Reed Sheppard ended up with a 7'9.5" standing reach, and everybody has different body mechanics or like body shapes and like longer necks and shoulders width and everything like that, right? Tyler Kolek was shorter than Reed, had a shorter wingspan, ended up with a 7'11" standing reach. I don't know if Reed gamed the vertical leap system. What I will say is that I think Reed having real explosiveness pops on tape. When he's going to contest shots, there's a reason that he blocked almost 1 shot per game this year.
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, you have to take the vertical leap number in conjunction with the standing reach number.
Yeah.
And look at it as a holistic thing. And in my opinion, Reed's vertical jump was probably a little bit more equivalent to like a normal 6'2" player having like a 38-inch vertical leap, as opposed to a 42-inch vertical leap, right? And that's great. Like that's awesome athletic testing. And Reed is definitely a way better athlete than what people think. And I think we've talked about that the entire year, that like we like Reed athletically a little bit more than what the consensus is. Reed also had like a fantastic lane agility time where he was 10.96. Like that's, well above average. I don't know what he did in the shuttle run. 3:03 looks okay to me. Yeah, again, like probably above average, but not like amazing. But the max vert is the one where it really stood out. And I will just note that I think that, take it with a small grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, just knowing the number that they touched, maybe would be even better than max vertical leap, whatever. And just for anybody who like isn't super into the combine, they do a standing vertical leap, which is no jump. They're just 2 feet, jump as high as you can. Max vertical leap, you're allowed to essentially do whatever you want. You can run in, off 1, off 2, whatever you want to do. So there is a difference between those two. I thought Keyshawn Johnson's number, that did not surprise me at all. I think he's a big time athlete. I really like Keyshawn. I know we haven't got into our second round conversations, that type of stuff. He's a guy that I would love to talk about when we do there. Obviously, Bronny tested well, like with all due credit. I assume at some point we're going to talk about Bronny. Give him his due credit here. He tested very well, which him being a great athlete is important for his NBA draft stock. You know who else I thought looked explosive, and the number says it. I thought Oso had some lobs and finishes in the scrimmages where he looked really explosive, and the number there kind of backs that up as well.
Yeah, he's got real pop. He has real vertical pop. The guy I want to talk about is Devin Carter, though.
Yeah, sure.
People know that like I've been exceptionally high on Devin Carter throughout this process. I have him as a lottery grade. The reason for that, A, is like awesome competitor, great defender, processing ability, but B, I think he might be the best athlete in this class. And we've talked about that throughout the season, that we think Devin Carter is like this incredible athlete. Set the record for 3/4 sprint time, I believe. Lane agility time was 3rd behind KJ Simpson and Dalton Connect. 42-inch vertical leap. Like just an absolute dude in terms of how like athletic he is. He is explosive and he processes the game faster than you. I think he is an awesome, awesome player.
Well, the standing vertical stands out to me. Can you filter that one? I can see that he's tied with a few guys, but like that's big time explosion when you're not getting any momentum into it. So for anybody not watching on YouTube, it's 35 tied with Adem Bona and Oso Ighodaro. So that's a really, really impressive number. Another guy who's I guess the vertical leap stuff isn't here, but some of the other numbers, it looked like Connect performed really well with the lane agility, shuttle run, and that stuff. We talked about him being a big time athlete all year as well. And yeah, he's still up there in the overall max vertical leap. So Dalton Connect is a real athlete.
Yeah, Dalton's a real athlete. Modest Buzelis, measuring in, 6'8", 7'5" or so without shoes, and then 38-inch vertical leap. I think that was a great number. Tyler Smith, 38-inch vert at his size, great number.
Sure.
Oso, you brought up Adembona, 40-inch vertical leap at his size, great number. PJ Hall probably surprised some people athletically, I think. Not super agile or anything. We knew that wouldn't necessarily show up, but near 40-inch vertical leap, I think probably surprised some people. Jamal Shed, I kind of thought would even test like better than what he did. The quickness was obviously there, like awesome lane agility stuff, but only a 38-inch vert. Like I expected him to be up over 40. Yeah, I mean, look, like Khalil Ware jumping 36 with his measurements is pretty absurd as well. There's still a lot of dudes here that I think tested like quite well athletically. In terms of guys that like didn't test super well, Peyton Sanford, 28-inch vert, not ideal. We knew that wasn't going to go super well. Coleman Hawkins, only 29.5. Like that's a weird number for what his just like overall profile is as a prospect. I kind of expected a little bit better than that.
Yep.
Cam Spencer, we knew Cam Spencer wasn't going to test well. Did actually even test like a little bit better in the agility stuff than what I expected, but nonetheless,
Furphy
Baylor
being down
Shireman
at the bottom is interesting.
Furphy was a little bit lower than I expected. Shireman being a little bit lower than I expected. Other than that, like a lot of these, like Justin Edwards being a little bit lower than what people thought in vertical leap, and some of the agility testing that feels a little bit concerning. But you don't want to get like over the top with a lot of these numbers, I don't think, just because they are what they are.
There is also real like practicality to athleticism as well. I tell people all the time, Sam, when I was in high school, if you put me on a track, I would look like a fool. I would not have stood out in any sort of way. You put me on a basketball floor and I look like the best athlete in my area because like I just moved like a basketball player. I learned to move that way. I couldn't jump out of the gym by any means, but I could jump in traffic. I could take contact and still elevate. I could take body in the air and still elevate. I've seen dudes that jumped way higher than me that couldn't dunk as well in games because the traffic disrupted them or they had to have their steps perfectly and those type of things. So you have to take some of this with a grain of salt and a little bit like it's just another piece of the pie, right? Like, does it track with what you saw on film? If it doesn't, maybe I need to go back and watch some film and maybe this guy wasn't as athletic as I thought, or maybe the athleticism was a bigger concern than what I thought. Let me go back and watch the film and see if it shows up more now that I'm really watching it.
I think that's a good call. Let's go to the measurements portion now, maybe, and kind of dive into any numbers that kind of caught our eye there.
So the big one was Steph Castle's incorrect height to start the day off, right?
And like that, so I was asleep when all of that was happening.
Okay.
So I didn't see any of that, which was good.
Yeah.
They just didn't put Devin Carter's measurements in clearly for him early on. Yes. Anybody that's seen Steph Castle in person, like knows immediately that's just like an insane.
I was so confused because like I've talked to people who have been very close to Castle and never did somebody be like, oh, he's actually only 6'2", 6'3". Like that was never something that was said. So I was like, what is going on?
So just like the standout numbers here, Zach Edey at 7'4" almost without shoes is just completely bonkers. 7'11" wingspan almost. Just an enormous human being. Donovan Clingan coming in at almost 7'2" without shoes. 9'7" standing reach for both of those guys. 7'7" wingspan. Everything we expected. We should bring up Alex Sarr here. Comes in almost as a legit 7-footer without shoes. 6'11", 7'5", 9'2" standing reach. 224 pounds was heavier than what I anticipated for Sarr. He's clearly done really good work putting on weight.
Real quick,
7'4", 2'5" looks like, that's exactly what we would have hoped.
The standing reach thing that you're talking about plays out right here with Edie and Klingon. Edie's almost 7'4" with this almost 7'11". Klingon's almost 7'2" with the 7'7", and they have the same standing reach according to this. So like, to your point, like some of these numbers are just funny based on, did a guy not reach quite as much? Did a guy really extend? Is it necks, shoulders? All of that stuff plays into it. So just some context with what you spoke on earlier.
Khalil Ware's numbers really popped for some
Yeah.
people. Damn near 7 foot tall without shoes, 9'4.5" standing reach, 7'4.5" wingspan. I would have liked to have seen Khalil Ware like play, to be honest. There was never a chance that was going to happen. But, a guy that I wish I liked a little bit more, because I like the tools. I just think that there were a lot of moments, even at Indiana this year, where he was a little bit more disengaged than what I would have liked to see. And that was like, he did better. Like, he did great work coming in from Oregon, where like the book on him, like Dana Altman would go into press conferences and be like, he's not playing hard. Like, we need him to play harder. We need him to do this, that, and the other thing. And he's not. Yeah, I think that I would have, there were some, he did better at Indiana with that stuff. So on a positive trajectory there, but I wish that there was a little bit more that he was doing on a possession by possession basis in terms of like engagement. Numbers that stood out like beyond just like the tall guys. So Kyle Filipowski coming in, almost 7 foot in shoes, 6'10", 7'5" without shoes. 8'11" standing reach because he has the negative wingspan. That is a number that definitely stood out, and it's not like wildly surprising watching him.
Yeah,
that's the case. I like Filipowski's defense in space a little bit more than other people's do, which is probably why I'm like a little bit more inclined to be okay with it. But 8'11" standing reach for a guy who's going to play a decent amount of center is like a little bit of a low number that teams will want to take a look at. Oso Ighodaro at 8'8" standing reach for a big.
Yeah.
Again, guy that had a 40-inch vertical leap or whatever it was. Great standing vert that led the combine. Take those numbers in conjunction with one another, but they're probably more in the ballpark of like Filipowski's numbers now, as opposed to, what you hope to see from a big who's going to have to like be a weak side rim protector, move his feet on the perimeter, kind of be a little bit more athletic. Like, he's going to get by on like quick twitch and athleticism and everything.
And a guy we've talked about, the defensive rebounding being a major concern whenever we're talking about him and these other bigs at the end of the first round. And why do we draft this guy over that guy? I think we both love his skill in terms of his passing. I think he has a really nice floater. Can't shoot, but he'll operate DHOs and all that stuff. But he's got to rebound the basketball on the defensive end.
Absolutely right. Nafali Dante coming in, 6'10" without shoes, 9'3" standing reach, 7'6" wingspan. We knew that he was going to be enormous, but like that wingspan is pretty ridiculous. Chomchi, we got measurements for. I had those since Hoop Summit. People probably aren't like totally aware of that. Ulrich Chomchi is a guy that, has gotten some buzz as a potential draft pick coming out of the NBA Academy. I don't think he's like anywhere remotely close to being a draft pick right now. Like, I think he should be going to college somewhere in terms of his game. 7'4" wingspan though, 9'1" standing reach. Yves Missy, damn near 7 foot in shoes, 7'2" wingspan, 9'1.5" standing reach. Good enough for him. Adem Bona, 9 foot standing reach, 7'4" wingspan almost. Great numbers there. PJ Hall came in, 7'1.5" wingspan. I don't know if everybody knew that number, but did come in 8'7.5" standing reach, which again, big time vertical leap, small standing reach. Take those numbers in conjunction.
Tristan Da Silva almost being 6'10" in shoes is a little bit taller than I thought, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like, he'll be listed at 6'8" in the NBA, which is big for him. 8'8.5" standing reach is a good number. We've had Isaac Jones since Portsmouth. We've had Enrique Freeman since Portsmouth, but him coming in, 9 foot standing reach, really good number. Keyshawn George for a wing, 8'9" standing reach at 6'7", big number. Alex Caravan, 8'10" standing reach. I feel like I've mentioned a few times on the podcast the Caravan has a 7-foot wingspan or something near that. But like I got people like, wait, like Alex Caravan's arms are long. I'm like, yeah, that's been the reality like all year. He ends up at 6'11" wingspan, really, really good number for him.
Cody Williams, 7'1".
Cody Williams, 7'1" wingspan. Ryan Dunn, 7'1.5" wingspan. Jonathan Mogbo, 9'1.5" standing reach, 7'2" wingspan. For a guy that's like on that precipice of 4 or 5,
yep,
that's a big number for him.
Yep.
Let's get to kind of some of the smaller guys because I know that was a talking point. Jamal Shead, not super long. We knew that coming in. Robert Dillingham. Rob Dillingham, 7'11" standing reach, 6'1" with a 6'3" wingspan. The big number that teams will be worried about there is 164.
Yeah.
He's 164 pounds at the combine. I think that was 15 pounds lighter than anybody else that was there. That is definitely a number that teams will have some worries about. Because I think that Rob was listed at Kentucky at like 175 or so, even like 170, 175. 176 at Kentucky was the weight. That was just like never reality. It felt like. Reed Sheppard, we talked about a little bit, 6'1", 7'5" without shoes, 6'3", 2'5" wingspan, still quite skinny, 181 pounds. Jared McCain, 6'2" with a 6'3.5" wingspan. Devin Carter had the +6 wingspan. I'm trying to think. Boogie Ellis +6 wingspan. Trey Alexander, we knew super length, +7 wingspan, but Trey Alexander did not play super well in the games at the combine.
He did not. Salas with a +6 and what is that? +6.25. Okay.
+6 wingspan, which we kind of felt like was possible. Jacoby Walter was a guy that I had some questions on lengthwise. He ends up at 6'10", damn near +6 wingspan. Dylan Jones, +6 wingspan. Jackson Robinson, very long, damn near a +6 wingspan as well. 8'7" standing reach for basically like a shooting guard. That's a good number. Jameer Watkins, +6 wingspan, definitely feels long, plays long. And then Harrison Ingram, +7 wingspan for him. So really, really high end number that I think people were excited to see. Anything else really stand out to you in terms of like heights, weights, measurements, anything?
No, the weight on Dillingham is interesting. Like I looked up Bones Highland, Bones, obviously a reason that's his nickname, 169 whenever he tested at the combine. So that's a low number there for Rob Dillingham.
Yeah, that's a real concern. Okay, let's go to games. Again, this comes from me having watched half of the third game and none of the fourth game. So I've not seen Bronny's second game at this point. What did you see? Did you see anybody that you felt like really stood out in the first day of the combine, let's say?
No, like I said, Shed was a guy that stood out to me. I thought Oso popped a little bit. I found myself gravitating towards AJ Johnson. I maybe that's just what I always do. I'm not saying he was great. I think Baylor Shireman probably did well for himself. I thought I was already pretty high on Keyshawn Johnson. I thought he looked good. Trying to think who else is like Reeves was, Reeves is a guy that you've really talked about quite a bit. Antonio Reeves, that maybe I wasn't high enough on. He scored the basketball a little bit. Those were probably the positives.
The guys that really stood out for me that I'll bring up were, especially first day, I thought Baylor Shireman and Jamal Shead were the two best players on the court in terms of like impacting the game across multiple places, like on the court. Shireman, like, passing, ability to drive the ball. We know that he can shoot. I thought he performed well. Jamal Shead was just like everywhere. It felt like, again, to me, great leader, did a great job. I think really kind of organizing his team, passed the ball well in that first game, did a really good job. I'm glad you brought up AJ Johnson. I thought AJ Johnson was quite good. He really impressed me throughout the course of the proceedings. Like I thought he was, his passing really stood out. I thought in game one. I know that like a big thing for AJ Johnson's group has been that they think he can play some point guard potentially, play some lead guard like in the way that Anthony Simons did. Look, he had 4 assists in the first game, and I think he had 6 in the second game. And I thought he did a really, really good job of showcasing that there is some real projectable vision there potentially down the road. I have not watched the second game though. I'm just looking at the box score and seeing that AJ Johnson had 6 assists and 0 turnovers there. So I would like to, maybe see a little bit more before I dive too deep into that. But undeniably, like, a guy that is as young as anybody in this class, especially like physically when you see him up close.
Yeah.
I think AJ Johnson honestly probably helped himself and like made it so I would anticipate he will go in the top 40 at this point.
Yeah, that's where I have him at this point. I've been a little bit stubborn on it. There was a long time where I didn't even think he would be in this class at all. We've talked about it from the like when you turn on the NBL film, I was like, Sam, this kid like moves a little bit different than anybody else, but there's some stuff that needs to get cleaned up. Hadn't played a whole lot of minutes. I was really interested in this context with other very talented players. How would he look? Would he play within himself, make good decisions? I came away very impressed with AJ Johnson.
Other guys on the first day that I thought like really, really stood out. I'm trying to think like if anybody like truly popped. I thought like KJ Simpson's the guy that you brought up.
Yeah.
He played pretty solidly. John Mogbo, I thought played well, to be honest. Like he did exactly the role that you would like to see, basically. Like I thought he was the exact thing that you were hoping his role would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moved the ball well, passed it well, played pretty big, I thought. Who else here? I'm trying to think of the second game as well. Enrique Freeman's the other guy we should bring up.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. That was
I don't think anybody's helped himself as much as Enrique Freeman through the pre-draft process so far.
Yeah.
Earned his call up to the combine, played at Portsmouth, played really well, earned his way into the G League Elite camp. I thought, Enrique Freeman basically locked up a 2-way, at least this week. And if you told me he gets drafted, like I would completely buy that. And I think it's like very, very plausible that he gets picked. I might end up with him in the top 60. And he's a guy that I thought was like a borderline top 100 guy kind of entering the process.
Yeah, listen, I pride myself on my Google sheet and all of the names I have and all of the scouts. Freeman was a guy that wasn't heavy on my radar until this process. So in that way, he's a guy that now I need to go back and really watch the film. It's a guy that averaged almost 13 rebounds a game, over 3.5 offensive rebounds a game, shot a really good percentage from the field. Looks like he started to shoot the 3 a little bit this season. So he's a guy that definitely I'm like, okay, he made it through this process. The numbers look good, flashed at the combine. Now he's like, I got to go figure out who this kid really is. And so it'll kind of be the inverse of how I usually scout a player, but I'm excited to go in and look at it.
I thought Jurisic looked interesting today.
Sure.
In the parts of the scrimmage that I watched. Again, I haven't seen that entire thing yet, but goes for 16 points, looked really intriguing as a scorer, worth bringing up there. And then I'm trying to think if anybody else like really popped in that scrimmage. I'll mention AJ Johnson. I think not AJ Johnson, AJ Mitchell in the first scrimmage. I thought passed the ball really well, which is something that scouts really wanted to see from him actually. And then the final scrimmage, which again, I've not watched the second of, I just want to be like very upfront and clear about that. It is worth noting that Bronny James goes for 13 points. He shoots 4 for 10 from the field, has 2 turnovers versus 2 assists. Like it's not some monster game or anything, but this can kind of transition us into the Bronny discussion point. There has been a lot of Bronny attention at the combine. And I think it's like a little bit to the detriment of the kid to some extent. Bronny's being pushed to the NBA early. Like we can just say that, right? He averaged how many guys who are Let's see what Bronny measured at. Bronny measured at 6'1.5" with an 8'2" standing reach, 6'7" wingspan, a good physical 210-pound frame, 40.5-inch vertical leap. How many guys, though, that are 6'1" and average under 5 points per game get pushed to the NBA and like are expected to be draft picks? Like none. Zero. The answer is zero.
Yeah.
So I am personally of the belief that it's a disservice to the kid to like really be pushing this in a real way. I think we should be excited about the fact that he, we should cheer his successes, like him shooting well at the star drill and apparently, playing okay in the second combine game. Like we should be happy for his, coming in and, playing fine and looking not out of place, maybe is the way to put it. Because for a guy that averaged 5 points at 6'1", there is a chance that guy looks out of place, right?
Yeah.
I am glad that he performed reasonably. I do not think that this moved the needle in any way, shape, or form for him as a draft prospect. I just think that at the end of the day, teams are going to look at the sample that they have for him on tape. They're going to look at the sample that they have seen previously, and they're going to base it off of that. And that's, the way that scouting works, right? You go off of the bigger samples and you go from there.
Well, and my thing here, if Bronny doesn't want to be a college basketball player, that's fine. Like if he is done with college, he wants to go be a pro, like we've seen countless other kids do, then great. And if he thinks the NBA G League is the place to develop him, then go ahead and go. I don't agree with that, but maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe that is the best place for him to develop. What I want to ask you is, I felt like the broadcast was purposely, I shouldn't say, the broadcast was pushing a narrative of Bronny doesn't need to be a point guard. He needs to be an off-ball player. Gavoni's whatever like profile database had him comp to Gary Harris, and the broadcast, like, what are your thoughts on him being an off the ball, like defensive stopper, floor spacer?
Well,
because he struggled with the ball in his hands and making decisions. He had some really bad turnovers in these scrimmages.
I think it's what he has to be. Like he has to be a off-ball player, because do you know how fucking good point guards are at dribbling the basketball, Bryce? Like, do you know how good they are at creating shots? There is no higher standard in the NBA than creative sub 6 foot or, sub 6'3" ball handler, right? Because think about it. There are just more of those guys on planet Earth than there are 6'7" athletes and 6'9" athletes and 7 foot tall human beings, right? So the standard to be a great point guard and great playmaker with the ball, it's higher than any other position. Because guys like great players play with the ball, especially at the NBA. Like great players at the high school level always have the ball in their hands. Bryce, how much did you have the ball in your hands in high school?
All the time.
Yeah. What did you do in college?
Stood in the corner and shot threes.
Right. Like there are a million people like you who came from Kansas or Nebraska or California or New Jersey or wherever, right? Who had the ball in their hands all the time and had to adjust, right? Now think about how good you have to be to have the ball in your hands in college, and then adjust that to how good you have to be to have the ball in your hands in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't think Bronny can be an on-ball player in the NBA. I just don't. I think that he is not a good enough ball handler. I don't think he's creative enough with the ball. I don't think he has like the physical attributes to have the ball. Like he's explosive as a leaper, but he's like quite boxy, I think, as an athlete, and kind of square, and like I don't think he shifts his hips like super well and is like super shifty with the ball. So to me, I think he is this off-ball Avery Bradley, Gary Harris, if you want to do that, whatever. Here's the problem with the Gary Harris comp. And this is just me like, wanting to give Gary Harris flowers as opposed to anything, right? Gary Harris in his first year at Michigan State was a 5-star recruit, top 20 recruit in his class, averaged 13 points per game, shot 46, 41, 76. His second year, because he played 2 years, he averaged 17 points per game in his second year. Gary Harris was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. He made all Big Ten his second year. He was all Big Ten defense his second year. Like he was a like national ballot for like the Wooden Award, which is like the top 15 players in the country, basically. The level to which Gary Harris was better and is better than Bronny James coming into the NBA when they're both like right around like 19 years old is ludicrous. Like Gary Harris was a real dude at Michigan State, like a serious basketball player.
I think the question then comes down to, because we've said this multiple times, that we both think that Bronny James is a real NBA draft prospect and potential NBA player, just not in this class, is does Bronny improve the things he needs to improve at, which I think is shot making, shooting is the very first thing. Does he do that better on an NBA team in the G League, or with going to another year of college and playing in that role and getting those minutes and those type of things? I think that's what this question comes down to then.
So like, here's the other thing too, though. Like I just went on this like longer tangent of Bronny, like not, being able to play point guard. He does still need to improve his ball skills, like in a real way. Because again, like if the idea here is Gary Harris, Avery Bradley, those guys were way ahead of him as like ball handlers and ability like to create shots. So like Avery Bradley, for instance, freshman, top 5 recruit in the country, 12 points per game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, shot 43, 38, and then like very rarely got to the line, but shot 55% from the line. Right. But like way ahead of where Bronny is, shooting 36, 26 this year or whatever, and averaging 5 points. I just think that, Avery Bradley, all freshmen in the Big 12. I think it would be better for him to go to college and develop against players that are his own age that will allow him to continue to improve his ball skills at a like marginal rate that he may need right now. Doesn't mean we're not going to root for him. Like I hope that he's great. The other piece of it is like, and this is where like I'll talk a little bit about the broadcast. Like I think Woj said that he's going to pack out G League arenas and like have all this merchandising stuff. I mean, like even if he goes to like Sioux Falls or something, right? Or, Fort Wayne, wherever, probably going to end up in LA, but like, let's take a second here. He is not going to pack out those arenas.
Yeah.
Like nobody packs out G League arenas. That's just the reality of it. Why is that the case? The G League is like a developmental league where nobody really cares about the wins and losses.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So like, I really like Chase Buford, former coach of the Sydney Kings. Chase like kind of responded to one of my tweets and said, yeah, but like, think about the way that like LaMelo, packed out arenas in Wollongong for Illawarra. Like that was one of the lowest attendance teams. And the thing is that LaMelo was just way ahead of Bronny right now as a player. So like it was a show when LaMelo played, but B, like NBL games, that's the highest standard of basketball that you can get in Australia. Like that is a really good competitive basketball game. So you're not going to the highest standard of basketball if you go to see Bronny play. I can see a world where like if he's in like Stockton or wherever, like one of these towns, small cities, let's not call Stockton a town. I don't want Nate Diaz to come after me. But like if you go to like one of these like smaller cities, I can see a world where Bronny like sells more tickets early on. But like it's a drop in the bucket of what the like impact is of a draft pick.
I think what you just said is really important as well. Is that's not his style of play. Like he's not a flashy, exciting play with the ball in his hands, cross dudes over. Like there's nothing wrong with this. It's just
they might go like once or twice, but like they're not gonna like,
you're not selling out to watch Bronny dog dudes up and down the floor defensively, which like I hope he does, but that's not what listen, I don't say this in a disrespectful, that's not what casual NBA fans go to games to see. And unless he's just putting highlight reels with lob catches and stuff, he's not flashy. And again, that's fine. I love non-flashy players, but that's what would sell in this situation, I think. Now, jerseys, I think he could sell a bunch of jerseys. I do think
I think the merchandising thing is like absolutely a real fair point. But again, to me, like it's just like it's just like a smaller drop in the bucket of what like the value is of like hitting on a second round pick could be for your organization. And if you're prioritizing that like drop in the bucket, like positive stuff from Bronny over, a guy that you have higher on your board potentially, in terms of like on-court play, that's just like crazy to me. And I can't see that. Look, I think Bronny, like, I guess, like, didn't hurt himself this week. Probably like helped himself marginally, just by like not looking totally out of place. But yeah, I just think that like at the end of the day, it's for his basketball career. I think it would be more valuable for him to play against college guys next year, even though that's not going to happen. Like, it seems like that's not going to happen.
And before somebody comes, like, here's the thing. We didn't put the Bronny ISO cam on the broadcast. We didn't spend entire segments of the broadcast only talking about him and all of that. So I just like, this is what was like projected and what was talked about. And so if we're going to talk about the combine, we have no choice but to talk about Bronny James. And I want to emphasize, we both think there is a path to the NBA for this kid. I think we both agree that one more year of college, assuming he's willing to be a college kid, I'm sure he could clean up with NIL, is the better path for him becoming a real long-time legitimate NBA basketball player, because he has that potential.
The other thing that we haven't talked about yet to move on from Bronny is guys that like maybe didn't help themselves at the combine. And we should probably name a few of those players real quick. I mean, anybody that you want to start out with.
I like this kid. Trey Alexander, I didn't think looked great in the scrimmages.
Really struggled in the first. I thought he was like really, really bad in the first one. I haven't watched the second one. I don't think I remember him from the first game in the second one. So he played in the second one. So I haven't watched that one.
Yeah, he played in the game you haven't watched. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he was probably one of like the least effective guys out there. I thought Ulrich Chomchi was like not.
He just makes flash plays. Like that's what's exciting with him is he makes flash plays. I thought David Jones struggled. He also looked shorter than what I thought. He struggled a little bit. Listen, my guy Peyton Sanford didn't like shoot lights out, had a few air balls. This is one of those like where, and I know like I've sat here and gone best shooter in the draft and all of that stuff. I will take his 300 attempts this last year and over 100 attempts from the free throw line and his percentages on those over a couple day sample size. But if we're being honest, like he didn't go in there and just crush it and bang a bunch of shots. So I want to be fair. If I'm going to get on here and talk about him in such a positive light, I have to be fair when he doesn't, just go crazy as well.
Think that's right. I'm trying to think if anybody else like really kind of like popped in any significant way. Like I don't really think so. Everyone else, like I guess like Almanza, I thought like looked like he should probably try and find another option potentially.
Okay. Yeah, no, that was another guy too. I'm glad you brought him up. I've been a little lower on him throughout the entire process, going back to the beginning when people were talking about him as a first round pick. And I'm just like, I don't see it. And he just kept moving down my board and kept moving down my board. I didn't think he popped in these games. Again, here's the caveat I will give, Sam. These games are tough because you're trying to evaluate all 10 guys at the same time. Like You turn on I'll just use an Iowa game. Essentially, I'm watching Peyton Sanford and nobody else. It's really easy to evaluate him. In these, I'm trying to keep track of all 10 guys. And because they're wearing random numbers and stuff like that, it's even harder to know who's who at time. Like I'm looking down at my sheet. Okay, who's number whatever and stuff like that. So there are things that could be missed. Some of these guys maybe have played better than we thought, or some of the guys we highlighted earlier, maybe they didn't play as well. It is tough to not watch it 6, 7 different times to really get a feel.
Yeah, and then like Nick Clifford, I thought didn't look super great in the game that I watched. And then looking at the box score for the fourth game, looks like he didn't play well again. I thought Jameer Watkins was quite poor yesterday. Looked better today.
Watkins was a guy I was really excited to watch. He's a guy I like. I'm really interested in, but I didn't think he popped in the first game I watched either. I don't remember focusing in as much as on him as the second. So it sounds like maybe I watched, I didn't catch the good game with my focus on him as much.
Yeah. And then, people got real excited about Trenton Flowers in the first game. I thought he was okay. Like, was just okay to me.
Yeah. I guess we should shout out Coleman Hawkins. I know he was like player of the game or whatever in the first game today, so I think he hit 3 threes if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is where we're at in terms of the combine. The thing is that, again, I don't think the combine moves the needle as much as what people like to see, and especially this year. Like there are outliers. People bring up Jalen Williams every year. Like Jalen Williams is the guy that like really helped himself and really went crazy. But like I just don't think there wasn't anybody like that this year that popped. There wasn't anybody like that who like went from being a borderline first. The thing about Jalen Williams was that like he was a first round pick who went in, decided to be competitive, play the 5-on-5, and then blew up and was the best player in the 5-on-5, like very clearly. So like this year, the closest guys to the first round to me, like realistically, like removing my love for Jamal Shed and the fact that I will have a first round grade on him, even if nobody else will. Baylor Shireman, I think, is the only guy that played that I had a first round grade on, and that like anybody reasonably has a first round grade on. The next best player for me on my board, then you get into like Oso, Antonio Reeves, Justin Edwards, Cam Spencer, like Jurisic, Sanford, like guys like that. You know what I mean? And those guys are like outside the first round to me. So
I mean, the thing that's like, we got some live action of things. The thing that's tough now is for the next month, everything's going to happen behind the scenes without us seeing it, right? Like now these guys are going to go from Chicago and they're going to start spraying all over the country to these individual workouts. And for a lot of them, all it takes is one of those. Like you just got to go into Sacramento and ball out and be the best player in that workout and shoot lights out or interview like crazy. And all of a sudden now you're in play for the Kings at pick whatever, like, so that's where I think a lot of these, whether they played good or bad or whatever, maybe some teams earned them, maybe Enrique Freeman earned himself some more individual workouts in that, team workouts in that sense this weekend. And so that's where a lot of these kids are going to be, the next month. That's what, and here's the other thing. We're 2 weeks away from the decision as well, right? I think it's is it the 29th? Maybe that's not right for them for stay or go.
Yep. It'll be like right around that day.
Yeah. 2 weeks from today. So, and one other thing, not combine, Nikola Topic, top 5 guy, hurt his knee in their playoff games over there. I haven't seen the replay. Sounded like
I have.
Bad, and he's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I've done a couple of calls and my impression is that it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So looked like a big deal is what I was saying. It's like non-contact supposedly. Is that right? When it happened?
Not really. Like he kind of got bumped and then like landed on it funny a little bit. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be fine. Other guy worth noting, Tidjane Salaun, like while these guys were playing, combine basketball. He was playing in the playoffs over in France, and he dropped 19 points and 7 rebounds. And I mean, this dude, I go back and forth. I yo-yo on Salaun more than any player in this class because this dude, like game on the line, like 3 5-point games, something like that. He takes a logo 3 and fucking drills it. Like as the shot clock's going down, I'm just like, what are we doing, Tidjane? Like, this is amazing. He's so fearless. Like the motor is incredibly high, super long, like 6'9", 6'10", 7'2" wingspan from what I've been told. He's shooting 40% on layups, and on some level, that's like almost a non-starter to me. And yet, I just can't like.
Sam, he's
I can't
also
quit
only
it.
he's also only shooting 32% from 3. Like
I
it's
know.
it I'm with you.
But you
Like,
watch him and like he plays so hard and
well,
like he's a
and
great athlete
he
and
looks good. He's only 18 until August 10th. So you know, like there's even more coming with all of that.
yeah.
He's interesting.
But
Really.
then like you look at the like track record of stats like this basically for teenagers. It's not awesome. Like it's really not. But then you like consider he's on this crazy trajectory, right? Like where he's, what like didn't make the French national team in 2022, right? Like the under, what was that? I think that would have been like the 17s or 18s, maybe. But then like people, the other thing people do is like they'll be like, oh, like he can be the Giannis in this class, right? Guys, like the level to which Giannis was awesome in Europe before he came over here is like pretty serious. He was like really, really good in that season before he came over. I'm trying to pull up the numbers as we talk. I think he averaged like he might average like 17 like points a game or something like that. No, it wasn't crazy. No, he averaged like 10 points per game. Wasn't bonkers. But he shot 46 from the field, 31 from 3, 72 from the line. So like not that far off of Salaun numbers. I thought that like it was I thought he was like way ahead of that, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I haven't watched, I didn't scout Giannis, so I can't say. I haven't ever thought Giannis when watching Saloon in terms of that. But again, he plays hard, super physical, like built well so far. I'm trying to hash out the skill level while being cognizant of his age and the league he's being asked to play in as a professional. So
yeah, I ended up with him. I've ended up with Salaun in the lottery-ish range.
yeah,
I would say.
no, I definitely have him in that range as well.
Yeah, could be a little bit higher, could be a little bit lower. But he's the like I will say this. Teams are way higher on Salaun, and I think I said this on the mock draft episode as well. When I talk to teams, they are higher on Salaun than what the public is.
Okay,
For sure.
Interesting.
They are definitely like he's a real interesting upside swing for them.